Philosophies revived.
Imagine standing at a crossroads in your life. You've got two paths in front of you, each one leading to a different version of your future. But what if I told you that it's not just two paths, but an infinite number of them? Right now, in this very moment, you might be living in countless realities, each one playing out in parallel. Some of them are completely different from the life you're currently experiencing, and some might even be drastically darker, with different versions of you already facing death. The real kicker? You're not dying. Your consciousness is simply jumping from one reality to the next, continuing to live in the version of you where survival wins. What if this mind-bending concept wasn't just science fiction, but rooted in real quantum physics? What if this was a deeper truth about life, death, and everything in between? Stick with me, because today we're diving into one of the most fascinating, reality-shattering concepts in physics: quantum immortality, and the idea that your consciousness might just be jumping between infinite timelines. This could forever change how you view life and the choices you make moving forward. The many worlds interpretation. Let's break this down. Quantum mechanics has been one of the most mind-boggling fields of science, challenging our very understanding of reality. The concept of quantum immortality is based on the many worlds interpretation, MWI of quantum mechanics, proposed by physicist Hugh Everett III in the 1950s. At its core, the idea is that every single decision you make, no matter how small, creates a new branch of reality. Picture it like this: every time you face a fork in the road, the universe doesn't choose one path over the other, it splits, and each possible outcome creates a new reality. So when you make a choice, whether you take a left turn or a right turn, whether you choose to wear red or blue, you're simultaneously living out multiple versions of your life in parallel universes. Now let's say you're in a life or death situation, something life-changing, where the odds are against you. In one timeline, you might not make it. The illness could take you. The car crash might be fatal. But in another, you narrowly escape, and your consciousness shifts to that timeline. This means that, from your perspective, death doesn't exist. It's as though you never die. Your consciousness simply jumps to the universe where you survive. This is where quantum immortality comes into play. It's the idea that your consciousness never truly dies, but instead keeps hopping between realities to ensure that you always exist in some version of the universe. You could be living multiple lives at once, experiencing different fates in each one. This doesn't just mean that there are infinite versions of you. It means that every time you're faced with a major decision, the universe splits. Every choice you make could lead you down a completely different path, each one creating a new branch of reality. Imagine the implications of this. You aren't just choosing your path in life, you're creating infinite lives that exist simultaneously, each one an alternate version of your existence. The life you're living now isn't the only one. And if you're wondering what the cost of all this is, well, there are some deep questions to ask. How many realities can your consciousness jump through before it reaches a limit? Are there consequences to being able to navigate these multiple timelines? The quantum immortality concept. Now let's explore quantum immortality in more detail. It's one thing to say that your consciousness survives because it keeps jumping between realities. But what does that really mean for your life and for your understanding of existence? Quantum immortality suggests that your survival in the universe might not be as random as it seems. What if there is some higher force or grand design behind the shifting of your consciousness? Some people argue that our survival may not be a coincidence, but instead part of a larger plan. Whether or not you're aware of it, there might be a purpose guiding you through these timelines, directing your consciousness to jump to the reality that ensures your survival, no matter the odds. Take a moment and think about the close calls you've had in your life. Maybe it was that time you narrowly avoided a car accident, or that sudden illness that disappeared when doctors thought it was incurable. Ever wondered, why me? Why did I survive when so many others didn't? What if this is the reason your consciousness didn't survive in that version of reality, but it jumped into another timeline where you did? It wasn't just luck, it was quantum immortality, keeping you alive by shifting you to the reality where you survived. And what about the deeper questions this idea raises? Could there be a limit to how many times your consciousness can jump to a new timeline? Are we endlessly leaping between realities, or could there come a point when there's nowhere left to go? If you think about it, this isn't just an abstract idea. It forces us to confront our own beliefs about life and death. Is life really just a series of random events, or could it be that our consciousness is part of something much bigger, a reality more complex than we ever imagined? One of the most profound implications of quantum immortality is its connection to fate, destiny, and free will. If every choice you make creates a new reality, how much control do you really have over your future? Are you making decisions in an isolated vacuum, or is your consciousness already following a path mapped out by the infinite possibilities of quantum physics? The role of consciousness. Now let's dive into the role of consciousness itself. If you're starting to think that all of this sounds pretty abstract, you're not alone. Quantum mechanics doesn't just stretch our understanding of the universe, it challenges our very ideas about what consciousness is. According to the many worlds interpretation, particles like electrons exist in multiple states at once, a phenomenon known as superposition. So, when you make a decision, the outcome isn't just one thing, it's many things, happening in parallel realities. This might sound complicated, but let me break it down. Imagine that your consciousness is like an observer. You're constantly aware of the decisions you make, and each one creates a branch in the quantum tree, spawning a new version of you in a different timeline. But here's the catch: you don't just passively observe. Your consciousness is actively choosing the reality it wants to experience. It's like you're watching a movie where you get to decide the next scene. Every choice you make in life creates a ripple effect, opening up new possibilities for you to explore. In essence, your consciousness is not just a passenger in the universe, it's a participant in shaping it. Every moment you live, every choice you make, adds to the web of infinite timelines that are unfolding in real time. It's almost as though your consciousness is a force, actively steering the ship of your existence through the uncharted waters of possibility. The implication here is huge. We're not passive beings at the mercy of fate. We're active creators of our own realities. Now, the big question is, what happens to your consciousness when you die in one timeline? Does it simply disappear, or does it continue to leap between realities? According to quantum immortality, your consciousness doesn't just fade, it jumps to another timeline where you survive. And in the version of reality where you didn't survive, someone else is living out that fate. Your consciousness is immortal, jumping from one reality to the next, never truly experiencing death. The concept of time loops, but this whole idea of leaping between realities raises another fascinating question: is time truly linear? Or could it be that time isn't as straightforward as we've been taught? Time loops are one way of explaining the peculiar nature of time within the framework of quantum mechanics. Imagine that certain moments in your life are repeating over and over with subtle variations each time. You might experience a loop where each time you go through the same events, they feel a little different. This isn't just a random occurrence. It could be your consciousness moving through time loops, navigating parallel realities. Here's where it gets really interesting. Have you ever had the feeling that time is bending or repeating? Maybe you're doing something and you get that déjà vu feeling, like you've already experienced it before. What if these are moments when your consciousness is jumping timelines, revisiting experiences from alternate realities? Some people even report feeling like they're stuck in time loops reliving the same moments repeatedly with tiny changes in each version. It's as if you're caught in a cycle, unable to escape. But what if we're not meant to escape? What if the point of time loops is to offer us an opportunity to learn and grow? Think about the idea that you could go through the same moment 100 times, each time learning something new, refining your actions, making better decisions. That's the beauty of time loops. They give us the chance to perfect our choices, experiment, and try again. Instead of being trapped in an endless cycle, we could use time loops as a way to thrive. The concept of time loops connects directly with the idea of parallel universes. If time isn't fixed, if it's fluid, then these loops could be happening across different realities. Your consciousness could be moving through these loops, jumping from one reality to the next, experiencing multiple versions of time at once. Déjà vu and parallel universes. Now let's talk about a phenomenon many of us have experienced: déjà vu. You know that feeling when you're in a situation and something about it feels oddly familiar? You might be talking to someone you've never met before, yet the conversation feels like one you've had 100 times. It's as if you've lived this moment before, but you know you haven't. This feeling is often written off as a glitch in the brain's memory system. But what if it's something more? What if déjà vu is your consciousness catching a glimpse of another version of reality? One where you've experienced this moment before. This is where the idea of parallel universes comes into play. According to quantum mechanics, every decision you make branches into a new reality. So, when you experience déjà vu, it could be your consciousness tapping into an alternate timeline where that exact moment has already happened. You're not just remembering, your consciousness is leaping between versions of reality, picking up fragments of past experiences from parallel worlds. Imagine this: in one reality, you're a doctor, in another, an artist, and in yet another, a scientist. Each of these lives exists at the same time, and sometimes your consciousness overlaps with these other versions of yourself, experiencing moments that feel familiar but aren't quite right. It's like catching a glimpse of a dream that isn't yours, but still feels like it is. These parallel universes don't just offer new experiences, they offer new lessons. The more you explore them, the more you learn about yourself, about who you are, and about the choices that shape your destiny. The connections between these realities are like a vast network, with each thread leading you to deeper understanding. And perhaps the more aware you become of these overlapping timelines, the more control you'll have over your own fate. The observer effect. You've probably heard the phrase, "What you see is what you get." But in the quantum realm, this might not be entirely true. In fact, it's almost the opposite. According to quantum physics, when you observe something, you actively shape its behavior. This is called the observer effect. The mere act of observing particles, or even events, can change the outcome of what you're observing. Now you might be thinking, how can my consciousness affect the reality around me? Well, let's dive into that. Think about it like this. Imagine you're watching a movie, and in the film, the characters are unaware of you, the audience. The movie plays out as scripted, regardless of your presence. But quantum mechanics flips this notion on its head. The observer effect suggests that reality itself behaves differently depending on who's observing it. The simple act of focusing your attention on something can alter its behavior. This could mean that by observing your own reality, you might be influencing its course. Now, what does this have to do with you? Here's the fascinating part. Your consciousness might act as an observer in the grand scheme of things, shaping the reality you experience. Imagine your life as a movie, and you're not just watching it passively. You're an active participant, and by paying attention to certain moments, you are making choices that create new possibilities and alternate outcomes. What if I told you that the choices you're making right now, even as you're listening to this, could change your timeline? Every time you focus on a particular goal, emotion, or decision, you may very well be changing the fabric of reality itself. This idea is powerful because it suggests that you are not at the mercy of fate, you are actively involved in creating it. If you can shape your reality just by observing it, then you have the potential to influence the timelines in which you live. It's like flipping through channels on a TV. Each channel is a different version of reality, and you can choose which one to tune into. By shifting your focus, by observing things with intention, you can consciously navigate through different versions of your life. This idea has profound implications. It raises the question, how much control do we really have over our lives? If our consciousness can affect reality simply by focusing on certain outcomes, then we are the creators of our own universes. Our thoughts, emotions, and awareness are powerful tools that can literally bend the universe to our will. So, what will you choose to focus on? What realities will you decide to bring into existence? Quantum immortality and personal growth. Let's go deeper into how the concept of quantum immortality can be applied to personal growth. You see, quantum immortality doesn't just offer a fascinating perspective on life and death, it also provides a powerful framework for understanding how you evolve as a person across infinite realities. Every timeline you visit, every alternate version of yourself that exists, carries within it lessons that can be applied to your growth in this reality. Picture your life as a long, winding road. In each version of your existence, you're constantly learning and adapting. Maybe in one timeline, you make choices that lead to immense personal success, while in another, you face challenges and setbacks. But here's the thing, all these versions of you are still you. The essence of who you are, the core of your being, remains consistent across these realities. The key difference lies in the decisions you make and the lessons you learn to tap into the wisdom of countless versions of yourself. Every time you experience a setback in your current life, there's a version of you somewhere that has faced that same challenge and overcome it. Your consciousness is not just limited to one version of you, it's a vast network of experiences, each one contributing to your personal evolution. This is where the true power of quantum immortality comes into play. Every time your consciousness jumps to a new timeline, it's not starting from scratch. It's drawing on the accumulated wisdom and growth of the countless other versions of you that have already walked those paths. This concept opens up new possibilities for personal development. If you know that your consciousness is constantly evolving and learning from infinite realities, you can start to embrace challenges and setbacks as opportunities for growth. Each difficult moment becomes a chance to access the lessons learned in other timelines. You're no longer just surviving, you're thriving, gathering knowledge and wisdom from an infinite well of experiences. You might wonder, but how do I consciously tap into this wisdom? Well, it starts with recognizing that you are more than just one version of yourself. You are an infinite being, living countless lives, and the lessons from each of those lives are within you. By meditating, reflecting on your experiences, and staying open to new perspectives, you can start to access the growth that's already present in other timelines. Quantum immortality doesn't just allow you to survive, it allows you to grow into the best version of yourself, over and over again. Thriving vs. surviving. One of the most fascinating aspects of quantum immortality is the concept of thriving versus surviving. When your consciousness is constantly jumping between timelines, it's easy to fall into a survival mindset. You might find yourself thinking, I just need to make it through this day, this challenge, this struggle. But what if I told you that survival mode isn't your only option? What if there was a way to thrive instead of just surviving, even within the confines of infinite timelines? In survival mode, you're simply trying to get by. You're not focused on growth or expansion. You're just focused on reaching the next moment, the next loop. You might be living the same day over and over, trying to avoid the same mistakes, struggling to make sense of everything. But in thriving mode, you embrace the idea that every new day, every new timeline, is an opportunity to grow. Instead of just reacting to the world around you, you begin to take charge of your destiny, making decisions that align with your highest potential. Imagine that every time you're faced with a challenge or an obstacle, you see it not as a roadblock, but as a stepping stone. You understand that, within the infinite timelines, each decision you make brings you closer to the person you're meant to become. Every reality offers new opportunities to learn, grow, and evolve. And every time you face a challenge, you become stronger, more resilient, and more capable of handling whatever comes your way. The key to thriving in this infinite web of timelines is to shift your mindset from one of scarcity to one of abundance. Instead of seeing life as something you just have to survive, see it as a playground of infinite possibilities. Every decision you make is a chance to experiment, to learn, and to grow. You're not just living one life, you're living countless lives, and each one teaches you something new. So why settle for surviving when you can thrive? Thriving means embracing uncertainty, leaning into the unknown, and trusting that each timeline holds valuable lessons for you. It means setting goals that go beyond just getting by. What would it look like if you approached life not as a series of obstacles to overcome, but as an adventure to embark on? When you shift your perspective from surviving to thriving, you open up a world of infinite possibilities. You are no longer a passive observer in the game of life, you are an active participant, shaping your own destiny across countless realities. As we wrap up, let's reflect on this journey. Quantum immortality and parallel realities invite us to think differently about life, death, and the choices we make. We are not just living one life in a single universe. We are living countless lives in infinite versions of reality, each one shaped by the decisions we make. Every time we face a life or death situation, our consciousness is there, leaping to the timeline where we survive. But it's not just about survival, it's about learning, growing, and thriving across infinite realities. The most profound realization here is that you are not just one person. You are an infinite being, living countless lives. Your consciousness is constantly evolving, learning, and collecting wisdom from every timeline it touches. The question is, how will you use this knowledge? Will you continue to survive, or will you begin to thrive, taking control of your destiny in the infinite web of timelines? Remember, the choices you make today ripple through infinite realities, shaping the person you are and the life you lead. You have the power to shape your own future, not just in this reality, but across countless versions of yourself. So, what will you do with that power? What choices will you make? The infinite possibilities are waiting for you to embrace them and unlock the secrets of the multiverse.